I'm demonstrating how to knit Fair Isle from a chart. And what I have here, the chart that I've made, I'm currently on row 48, which is also a repeat of row 5. My main color is ivory, and my contrasting color is actually a peacock color. Looks green on my chart. My contrasting color will appear on every first peg of the pattern repeat. So every peg that I've labeled number 1 will get the contrasting color. All the other pegs will get the main color, which is ivory. And I've numbered my loom 1 to 4. Each row starts on this pink first peg, and it's noteworthy that I am working the pattern clockwise. I started it that way. It was a bad idea because I have to count backwards with each row, and I have to end each row on the number 2. And then the next row would begin on the number 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. So in hindsight, since we naturally count numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I probably should have worked this chart going counterclock. I did make a mistake on it, and I'll show what happened with that later. But right now I'm working row 48, and I'll demonstrate how to change color with the Fair Isle. Right now I have 3 colors attached. I have my main color, the ivory. I have this peacock color is what I'm using on row 48. It's the contrast. And then I still have attached this dark gray. And it's attached here because I used it a few rows down, and I'll use it again in row 49. There were 7 colors total for this pattern, and since I'm almost done with the hat, all those other colors have been knitted, and the tails for those are here in the middle of the hat. But moving on, continuing on with row 48. So every first peg, I'll show the pattern again. Row 48, every first peg, and since I'm working clockwise, I have to read my chart clockwise. Every first peg is the contrast color. So moving clockwise, the last peg that I knitted was this number 1 right here with the contrast color. So the next peg is labeled number 4, and I'll put the main color on there, knit. The next peg is a number 3, and that also gets the main color, knit. The next peg is a number 2, and that will get the main color, knit. The next peg is a number 1. So I've dropped the main color behind here, and I pick up the contrast color, put it in front, and just knit it over. So now behind those pegs, you can see there's a long line there going from number 1 to number 1 of that contrast color, and it's that way throughout the hat. Those are called floats, and it's completely normal, and you've probably seen floats before in a hat that you bought commercial at Walmart. And then I just continue on. 4, 3, and 2 will all get the main color. And then I drop that. I pick up the contrast color for peg number 1. So Fair Isle can, a Fair Isle pattern can be any number of stitch repeats. This one is a 4-stitch repeat. You know, if you have a 5 or a 6 or an 8 or a 10 or a 12, all of those will work out just fine on a 120 peg loom, because all of those numbers are a factor of 120. And then I pick up the contrast color, and I'm almost here at the end of this row. So 4, 3, and 2, and that ends that row. And you can sort of feel the conundrum that I've had ending on peg 2 right there. It's just, it doesn't feel natural to end on peg 2, but if I keep going, I'm gonna mess up the pattern. But you can see number 1, number 1, number 1, where I first started the row, number 1, they all have the contrast color. So it worked out just fine. So now I'm ready to start row 49 on that pink peg. And so I'll take a look at my chart here. Row 49, which is also a repeat of row 4 from the beginning. And in row 49, the contrast color is going to, it's a different contrast color. So I'm going to drop the peacock and I'm going to pick up that dark gray, and I'm going to put that dark gray on every other peg, or rather all the odd pegs. So the 1, the 3, and then the 1 and the 3, and the 1 and the 3, and so on. And then the even pegs will be the ivory, the main color. So, and I am almost done with this hat. Once I get down to 52, I'm done. I will not need that peacock color anymore. So I can take my peacock here, or turquoise, I call it turquoise, and I can cut that. That's kind of a good feeling that I'm done with that color forever. And just push that aside. So now I have just 2 working yarns attached, the ivory and the gray. And again, the gray is now my contrast color, and it's going to start on peg 1. So I pick it up from way down here where I used it last. And I'm going to put that on peg 1 to start off row 49. And the chart that I'm using here, I've put that on my Ravelry page. And so every other peg, or every 1 and every 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, will be this contrast color. The next peg is 4, so that gets the main color. Then 3, gray. 2 is white. 1 is gray. 4, white. So it's just gray, white, all the way around. Pause this. All right, I'm almost done with row 49. So the main color is on the even pegs, and the contrast color on the 1s and 3s. When I knitted that one, that was the last stitch of the peacock. It's a little bit loose, so I'm going to take the tail here, pull that snug. Almost done. This has been a lot of fun to do, and so I saw the hat in a movie called Winter's Bone, starring Jennifer Lawrence, and it's kind of funny commentary to you're watching a good movie and you notice the hats and the scarves in the movie more so than the plot. But I like the hat and I wanted to replicate it as best as possible. So I finished row 49 here. I stopped on peg 2 like a good knitter, and so you can see the pattern continues correctly. Gray, white, gray, white, gray, white. I want to point out the boo-boo that I made when in this same area of the hat. It's right here. You can see the pattern is a little bit wonky. Something happened there, and it lines up perfectly with that pink peg. And I think what happened is that I ended a row and then I began a row on that pink peg, and in the row before the boo-boo. And so when I came back around, everything had kind of shifted up a stitch, and the boo-boo has gone all the way up my hat here. But you know, when you're looking at the hat from this angle, you can't really tell. So I'm just not going to worry about it. And I should finish this up tomorrow. It's moving along real quick, and once I get it done, I've got to deal with all of these tails inside. And you could weave them in if you want to. I think what I'm going to do is like take 2 of them and tie them together. Take 2 or 3, tie them together, make a little knot, and then hide the knot as best as I can because I'm not too particular. But that's it. I'll put a link to my Ravelry page so you can see the chart for yourself and practice some Fair Isle. Alright, so what if your pattern told you to add a new color, like yellow? And this is totally hypothetical because there's no yellow in my hat. So if I were to add a new color into my Fair Isle, I would just make a loop here, right? And just let that tail hang down into the hat. So if my new color were to start on peg 3, for example, it's peg 2, isn't it? On peg 3, then my number 1 peg and my number 4 would be the main color, number 3, and every number 3 would be this new color, this yellow. So that one would be yellow. And then the working yarn over to the next yellow, and the next peg 3. Did I do that right? 3, 3, and nope, 3. And all of these others you would knit in the main color. So the white ivory would be 1, 4, and then 2, 1, 4, yellow, 2, 1, 4, the white ivory, and then the yellow again on peg 3. Now, can you knit it this way and just weave all the way around with your yellow, just like this, instead of knitting 1 peg at a time? Yes. And I did try that the first couple of rows, but my tension was a little tight, so I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend doing that. So you knit on a new color, just drape it over the starting where that color starts, and just knit it in, and leave a 6-inch tail just dangling down into the middle of the hat.